Hey everybody, my name is Kambua. Karibu sana. This is Sautiyamama. We've been having a series of conversations called Sautiyamama. As that goes, it simply means this is the voice of the woman, and we are specifically focusing on the health of women. These conversations are courtesy of Better for Kenya, and I'm really, really honored to be a part of this as we get to know what's happening with the women, because healthy women make healthy families, make healthy societies. And when the women are happy, a lot of things run well. Women are indeed the backbone of society. I'm not just blowing our trumpet, it's true. I'm excited today to have Amina Farah. She's going to be talking with us about menopause, which it seems to be a word that is landing on everybody's page. When I get onto social media nowadays, it's becoming more and more common to have these conversations. But she's going to help us unpack, because she is actually a coach in menopause, among other things. But I want to read you some quick a statistic before I introduce Amina officially. Fun fact. Endometriosis and menopause alone could contribute about $130 billion to global GDP by 2040. And of course, as you know, menopause is linked to premature departure from the workforce and affecting women in many, many other ways. Amina is a lawyer. She's a women's health and wellness advocate. She's a menopause coach, and she's an entrepreneur, and she's absolutely gorgeous. Hi, Amina.
Hi, Kambua.
So wonderful to have you here.
Such an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana.
Sante.
Amina.
Yes.
Let's dive right into it. Why menopause? What's your why?
Well, I think menopause just kind of caught me off guard. So I actually went through premature menopause, and I had no idea.
Okay.
And I didn't get any information from any doctor, not my gynecologist, not the fertility specialists I went to see.
Yeah.
And I think it was like after the fact that I realized, like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
there's this whole thing called menopause,
Yeah.
that even the doctor wouldn't say that word to me, And I say my journey into menopause is really like my COVID gift.
Yeah. Oh.
At the time I was in the restaurant business.
Yes.
I was a restaurant entrepreneur, and everything came to a halt, right? So I stepped back, and I kind of was doing a lot of those career walks, because you had nowhere else to go, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In Nairobi.
We go get fresh air.
You just walk in the
forest.
neighborhood,
Yes.
or you go to Karura Forest,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And during those walks, I started reconnecting to the fact that, I was always interested in women's health and wellness.
Yes.
And I was working in the restaurant business, which was great. It was a great learning experience, great business to have. But my passion is women's health. I've been a fitness instructor.
Yes.
I studied nutrition. All these I did on the side while I worked in finance and being a lawyer. So when I had that pause, I was like, I really want to go back to women's health and wellness. And then I just started seeing more information about menopause, because in the UK, around COVID 2020 and 2021, there was a lot of discussion about it. And then I was like, wait a minute, I've gone through menopause. But nobody has really told me. Like, it's one thing to consciously realize, I've gone through this phase, and to really live intentionally knowing that you are actually postmenopausal. So I'm a postmenopausal woman.
Okay.
And I found out that the average age of menopause is 51, 52.
Okay.
And I pretty much hit it about a decade earlier.
That's why you said it was premature menopause. Yeah.
So, or early menopause. So there's two definitions. There's premature, technically, which is menopause before the age of 40.
Okay.
And then early menopause before the age of 45.
Okay.
Because the average age is like 51, 52. So I'm 53 today. I should be going through menopause now.
Amazing. 53, look at her.
This is 50s today. Like,
wow, I love it.
We are,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So I should be going through menopause now.
Yeah.
But I've already gone through it. So I found out this was like in my late 40s, and I was like, hold up, wait a minute.
Yes.
How come I don't know that I've gone through menopause? Why are we not talking about it?
Yeah.
So that really drove a lot of my, passion in women's health. I think I tell people the story when I came back home. This was about 12 years ago. I, wanted to go into women's health and wellness.
Yes.
And I'd even thought about opening a gym and a spa and a wellness center.
Okay.
And I remember at that time doing kind of like a market survey, and it was like, I don't know if the market is really ready. And some people were like, are you even really going to make any money into that, in that, right?
Yeah.
Today, there's a lot more going on with women's health and wellness.
Yes.
And even gyms and, yoga and retreats and just information.
Women are more aware
Yes.
of taking care of themselves.
Exactly. So like 12 years ago, maybe it was a bit early. And so I kind of took a detour into the restaurant business, as I say. And I think part of it was for me to recognize that I'd gone through menopause. I always believe, that life happens for us, not to us. So if we look and see what we're going through, why it's happening to us, because there's a reason it is. So even my experience of premature menopause, as much as some of it has been like, okay, fertility was an issue, that there are gifts in it. So that, I think that has been my gift to get into this advocacy work around menopause and saying, hey, women, this is an important phase,
It really strikes me that nobody, your doctor, nobody spoke to you about it, that the information was so limited. So, question is, what is perimenopause? Is that the same as premature menopause, or give us the definition? What's perimenopause? Because I keep saying I'm peri, and I'm saying it now. I think I'm perimenopausal because I went to my app. Now I'm now putting my secrets out there. I went to my app, but since we're having this conversation, and I think it's in the openness that women can start to understand what's happening with their bodies.
Yes.
I started putting in symptoms on my app because I was like, something doesn't look right. And then the app said, oh, you look like you're perimenopause. And I was like, oh, and I sent it. I sent the screenshot to all my friends. I was like, guys.
You also had to like, hold up, wait a minute, kind of moment, right? Like,
I'm too young.
Yes. I love that you said that. Because one of the myths around menopause is that it happens when we're old.
Yes.
I mean, do you feel old?
I don't.
I don't feel old.
I feel far from old.
Right.
I'm only getting into my 40s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yes, let's define what it is. Okay.
Yes.
So, menopause, I'll start with menopause, then we'll go back to perimenopause, and then we'll say what postmenopause is. So, menopause itself, the clinical definition, is when a woman hasn't had her period for 12 consecutive months.
Okay.
Okay. And then, so clinical definition, it's like technically menopause is that one day when you haven't had your period for 12 months. But the period leading up to the 12th month is the menopausal transition. Prior to that, there's a period called perimenopause, which means on or around menopause. It is the time leading up to menopause. And so what we're learning now is that women can be in this anywhere from 2 to 10 years before menopause. And even up to 14, just depends. If you're lucky, it's about 7 years, maybe 2 to 7, but between 2 to 10 years, that's like a whole decade. So let me give you the numbers. If menopause average age is 51, 52, right? So we can say women between the ages of 45 and 55 are going through menopause.
Yes.
And you can have perimenopause up to a decade. So that means women from as early as 35 could potentially hit perimenopause, right? But generally, because we'll go with generally, women are hitting perimenopause in their 40s.
Okay.
Yeah, so they used to say over 42, some people say over 45. I've heard them say average of menopause is about 47.
Yes.
And this also shows that menopause is an individual journey.
Right.
Okay, no two women go through it alike. It is a very individual, and I love that you said you are using the app, because I think this is an important thing for women who are still in premenopause. So premenopause is when you're just menstruating regularly each month. Your hormones are, you go through the 28-day cycle, which we've now kind of come to learn is really how our life and our energy is this 28-day cycle, right? So that's premenopause. So from puberty through perimenopause, you're in premenopause, regular menstruation. If you have an app and you start to notice that your period is changing, that is a big indicator you're in perimenopause. That's one of the first symptoms, but not really the only, is your period starts to change. Maybe it's not every month, it changes by a few days, then it starts becoming the regularity of the period starts to change.
Yes.
Okay. So perimenopause is also kind of when our hormones, and I'll now introduce the hormones.
Yes.
So we, as women, what they refer to them as the sex hormones, we have estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone.
Yes.
And yes, testosterone is important for women too.
Yes.
It's not just men, right? So during this perimenopause phase, which your app is suggesting that you might be in, and we'll talk more about other things and maybe you can identify, we can see, is your estrogen or estrogen starts to fluctuate. So it's doing this up and down thing. And your progesterone is declining also, but progesterone tends to decline at kind of more steadily, but estrogen does this up and down thing. So as I say, it's the one that's kind of creating the havoc during perimenopause, where women are feeling like changes, not only just the period, but things related to the brain. So you could have more anxiety, even depression, and depression when you've not had depression before. So you can clearly identify it's separate and apart from like regular depression. So, and then, you know, memory difficulties, difficulty finding words, sleep disturbances.
I'm sure there are women just listening, they're like, you're setting them free as you continue.
That it's happening, you know? So hot flashes, night sweats, you know? Then we start kind of drying up, dry skin, dry hair, you know, because estrogen.
Thinning hair.
Thinning hair, loss of hair, brittle nails, breaking nails. And then I'll even go. I mean, we even have the genital-urinary symptoms of menopause that people don't really speak much about. Those are the ones where women are like, you know, our mothers and our grandmothers, you're going through the change of life. Nobody really talks about it, right? Hello, genital-urinary, vaginal dryness, atrophy, you know, increased urinary tract infections. So there is like a real effect on women's health, even you could say, in terms of the changes because of your hormonal changes. So for me, I always say menopause, perimenopause is a women's health issue.
It is.
You know, it's like in our sexual and reproductive health, we start at puberty and then we end at menopause. And we've been neglecting this part here.
Which is so important.
So important. Because it's the part that leads you into like, we're spending maybe 30% to 40 to 50% of our lives in this period, depending on how long you live, right? And women are living so much longer right now, and I think we're working longer. Like I'm in my 50s and I'm not going to retire at 60. I'm like,
still
how?
Have a while to go,
I'm like 25 years minimum, right? And so we're living longer, and it's impacting how we show up. You know, so if you're having, you know, now we've talked about the symptoms, that not only the mental kind of brain-related symptoms, you have the physical symptoms, you know, the vasomotor, as they call them. Then you have the genital-urinary symptoms. And some people have a problem with the word symptoms. So let me discuss that. Because there are people who say, oh, why are you medicalizing menopause? It's a natural transition, right? It is a natural transition.
Correct.
But there are some signs that you're going. So if you prefer to use the word signs,
then use signs.
Use signs. If you want to say symptoms, use symptoms. The reason I think we say symptoms also is because there are things you can do to help you alleviate some of these changes. And so I like to call them changes, actually.
Okay, so these changes, because then, you know, as you've explained to us, the estrogen is doing its thing. And some of these symptoms can be so extreme for, you know, woman to woman.
Correct.
There is help for that, for some of those symptoms, changes,
signs.
Is there anything that women can get to? I know you've mentioned, but what are some of those things that women can do if, for instance, you know, when you were mentioning some of the symptoms to look out for, I'll say I'm now centered. I'm just going to be. I'll center myself so that nobody feels like I'm directly talking about them. We are using Kambua, okay?
Actually, we come back before even we go to what we can do. Tell us more, Kambua.
So let me tell you more.
Yes.
So I remember I would get, especially at night, I get the times I get extremely hot, extremely
night
hot.
sweats. Okay.
Night sweats. Like, and my husband's like, it's so cold. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know? And even I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, what is going on with me?
Yeah.
Or even what you're saying with the haziness, forgetfulness, and a lot of just feeling. I was like, is it the having children that has made my brain just foggy and all of that? Because you try to explain everything.
Yeah.
And I think for me, when I realized that perimenopause is a real thing and started to accept that, then I started to look at it differently. It's not something that's wrong with my body. It's something that I have to go through. So how can I go through it with ease and without it being so stressful? Because then, first of all, as you said, we always knew that menopause was for older women.
Yes.
But when I think about, say, my mom, I was trying to think, how old was she when she started to say she was going through menopause? She wasn't old, you know.
Right.
She wasn't. She was in her 50s.
Okay.
So I don't know why we always imagine, no, it's for old women.
Yeah.
So when anybody suggests, Kambua, you could be getting into your premenopausal years, you're like, no, that can't be me. How can we fix it?
Right.
So how can women like me embrace these changes?
Yeah.
And if they are uncomfortable, stressful, how do we handle them?
So I want to go back to something you've said, right?
Yeah, okay.
Before we even get there.
Take
because
me back.
I want to, for the last couple of years since I started, so I actually have a platform called Fabulous Living.
Okay.
FABULAS, Fabulous. And it's a knowledge and awareness platform about perimenopause and menopause.
Okay.
And I've really been on this whole awareness campaign because one of the things I find, because people have the myth that menopause happens when you're old. So women in their 40s, they'll be like, oh, no, that's not me yet.
No.
Apple. You know, it's like that whole, so there's a denial,
Yes.
you know, and I want women to be okay saying, I am going through the transition.
Yes.
So we have to start with this whole awareness, knowledge, acceptance.
Yeah.
And I recognize that there's a shame and a stigma
And that's
around menopause, right? Because I think kind of the vision is like, is this old, dry, angry woman, right? Isn't that
she's done?
Right? Like so you know, like she's done. And then with the African kind of context where fertility is so like important and revered, right? Like even in Africa, if you say I'm not having children, people look at you like sideways, like what do you mean, right? Because it's an expectation culturally. So I always kind of think like, is it something in our subconscious where we have this thing of like, oh my God, my fertility is ending. Will I still be relevant? Okay, now I'm getting old. Is my husband looking at younger women? Is he going out with younger women? Which we know is a problem in the society anyway.
Right.
Another whole big topic, right? That we won't get into, right?
Yes.
So I think the awareness and the acceptance. And I do this because I want women to understand there's no shame. And I want us to end the suffering because there's suffering happening. I really suffered through my menopause transition. So I'll give you my story since we're sharing, right? So when I came home, I was about 41.
Okay.
At that point, I was very in good physical shape. I had been teaching, you know, like on the side when I was working, fitness classes. I came home, I started doing yoga. So I was lifestyle-wise, I was in good shape and everything. And then I went into the restaurant business. And a year or two later, I just realized, this was around my mid-40s now, I was like, I was exhausted. So there's this overwhelming fatigue. So I'm explaining it all like, it's because I now have a business. I have a restaurant, then I had 2, then I had 3, you know.
have a lot on your plate.
So I'm like, okay, but women in their 40s are busy, right? So I noticed myself, like when I look back, I could recognize some of the symptoms, like, you know, definitely more anxiety. Had to have moments of depression, memory difficulties, but more so, it was like this belly fat, right? I noticed I was gaining weight and I thought I knew how to take care of it because I had been a fitness instructor. I read a lot about nutrition. I was very interested in women's health. As I said, when I came, I wanted to do the whole gym, spa. And then I'm like, my body is changing in front of me and I have no idea why. And the things I was doing were not working anymore. And yes, I had a good friend of mine, when I asked her, you know, when you saw me kind of gaining weight, what did you think? She's like, oh, I just thought you were eating your feelings.
Oh dear.
You know, like, because like I was having some of my own kind of stresses from work and relationship and everything. And it was just because my hormones were changing.
Yes.
And I had a lot of stress from running a business from 1 restaurant to 2 to 3. And stress is really not a good, it's something we have to manage when we're going through the transition, because as I say, our hormonal bandwidth is not the same.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, it's about us understanding what the changes are, right? So when I like look back retroactively, right, I'm now standing in my late 40s, 48, 49 there. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I actually had those changes, symptoms, signs. Well, in my mid 40s, they really hit me hard. I think earlier in my 40s, maybe because I was still really active and, you know, not as much stress, maybe I was okay. But then like somewhere around my mid 40s, it's like everything changed. Like the weight gain, the anxiety, the brain fog, the memory difficulties, the mood swings. Because that's part of it. It can go from like anger and rage to even just crying, because your hormones are, estrogen is doing this. And you have moments in the month where you actually have estrogen dominance, because remember, your progesterone is going down. And estrogen is doing this. So in the moments where progesterone is lower than estrogen, you have estrogen dominance, which can cause even what's called crime scene periods.
What is that?
So there's some women who go through perimenopause where their period becomes heavier.
Oh, got you.
Not everybody, so that's why it's a very individual journey. I remember when Oprah was having a lot of these conversations, and Gayle King, and I posted one of her videos on Fabulous Living, because I love how she said it. She was like, you know, I had no idea, you know, I knew about menopause, but I had no idea about perimenopause. Like it was a foreign word to her. And then she was like, and then all of a sudden, I have these like heavy periods, like crime scenes. And those are moments of estrogen dominance in the perimenopausal transition, so that your period becomes heavier. And some women will go through that. So you know, I'll say this also officially. When I started reading and learning and researching about menopause a few years back, they were saying officially there are 34 signs, changes, symptoms of menopause.
That's a whole lot.
Now it's gone to 50.
Oh, there's more.
And one of the most famous menopause doctors on social media, Dr. Mary Claire, if anybody wants to follow other, you know, like she's actually now doing menopause care. I remember she said 70 symptoms when she was on the Diary of a CEO podcast with Stephen Bartlett. And some people are saying they're even going up to 100, because let me say why. Because now we're realizing that a lot of these things women are feeling actually related to the transition. And I'll take a step back. So, you know, women's health and wellness, the reason I'm just like, we need more, is that we did not use women in medical research until 1993.
So that really bothers me.
1993. I was in college in 1993.
Oh my goodness.
I was about to finish my first degree. So we were always, the research was being done on men. And there's a reason that happened. Like, I think in the 40s, 50s, they did research, and some women were in the study, and then they got like birth defects in there. Some of them got pregnant, and they had, so they were like, whoa,
let's stay away
we
from
can't
the
use women. They're hormonal. They get pregnant. So let's put them aside.
Oh dear.
So let's use men, right? So a lot of the data that came out was applied to women like we are small men. It's called bikini medicine, right? So they say, okay, we've done this study on men, and then now a woman, she has, you know, bikini, breast and vagina, will apply, but we'll just use less because the woman is smaller. So we're being treated like small men, but we're so different biologically, right?
We're not men, small, big, we're not.
We're not small men. We are completely different. We operate on a 28-day cycle. Where our hormones go through the cycle from when we get our period to when we go to ovulation, and then we go into the luteal phase, and then we start again. Men, they get testosterone every 15 minutes. you know? So the world ticks on man's timeline. We've realized this. Even the workplace, even the workplace is based on man's fertility, that he can have children forever. Okay, almost forever, for the longest time. But women, we are when we hit menopause and our ovarian function stops, we can have children, but we need time to have children. But we're kind of on this life path as if we are small men, because that's what research has kind of. So I'm loving that this is changing. And I think that's why menopause is being discussed now, and there's more research being done, but there's still so much.
And I love that we're talking about it, because women go through menopause in isolation. You go through it when nobody's talking about it. You think it's just something wrong with you, can't figure out what it is. You don't know who to ask. The doctor is not telling you about it. And so the more, I like that it's popping up everywhere now. And I love the work that you're doing, because we are demystifying this thing. And when it's no longer something that we cannot understand, it becomes easier to approach or to go through. You touched on the workplace, and I want us to go there. How do you, let me first ask, because we I know we've laughed about, the angry Black woman, because the mood swings, like you've talked about. We don't live in isolation. I'm in a family, we're in community, we have friends, we have partners, we're in the workplaces. Apart from the woman, apart from Kambua understanding this is what's going on with me, how can the people in the communities that we're in support us as we go through this transition?
Well, I say that, first it starts with us knowing what's happening with us, which is why I think these conversations are important, right? And then I think our men, partners, our workplaces, our churches, whatever community, also need understanding that this is a natural transition women are going through. And then there's more understanding. So I love that more corporate workplaces are now involved in having conversations about menopause, because I've actually gone and done several, much more than like 2 years ago when I started. I maybe did one corporate talk, and then last year like a couple more. This year I've done a few more, right? And I'm getting requests because World Menopause Month is coming in October. So it starts with that, right? Like if workplaces are saying, let's have a conversation, and it's being pushed by women, because the talent, some of the talent in the company are women in their 40s and 50s. Look at the C-suite, look at the leaders. And they're not all leaders in C-suite. They're just women who have more experience, who have knowledge, right? And they're going through this difficult transition. Not every woman goes through menopause differently. Some women struggle through it, but some women breeze through it. So I want to be clear that I'm not saying every woman is like going to be, oh my goodness, but they're showing like over 60% of women have brain-related symptoms, over 60%. And the brain-related symptoms are the ones that really have an impact on the workplace. The brain fog, the lack of focus, it affects productivity, poor sleep, because you have to wake up and show up to work the next day and you haven't slept. You can't think. If you can't sleep, can you think? No. You're tired. Right? So these things are spillover, right? So what happens with the woman with her health impacts how she shows up at work, impacts how she shows up in her family. So you were saying that, like, if my husband doesn't know that I'm going through menopause, I come home, I've had a stressful day, I'm just angry, the kids are like, and this is the stereotype we have if we look back, like you remember, hey, the times, I have conversations with women and they say, we used to have these mean bosses who were in their 40s and 50s. They were so mean. And but they didn't know that these women are going through menopause, right? Or perimenopause. And the stress of work and life kind of compounds that feeling where some women really show the symptoms, because women in their 40s are busy, as we said. Most have children. Most have partners, spouses, they're running a household. And then this is the time when you maybe have to look after your parents. The 40s and 50s. So the women going through menopause, we say now we're in the sandwich generation, right? So we have parents and children, and we're in the middle.
And you're balancing them both.
So being part of the sandwich generation, you have that plus work. because women are working,
Yeah.
and they're rising, you know,
Yeah.
and they're so,
And then
you know,
you have your hormones.
and then you have your hormones, and then women are, you know, and then we're buying into this whole busy is the new sexy,
Yeah.
and then you hit menopause and it's like, wah, not so much, right? Not
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
And then you go home and you're like,
Yeah.
so this feeling of even like not recognizing yourself,
Yes.
the fatigue,
Yes.
you know, we could go through all those. I
Yeah.
think what we're saying is,
yeah.
for us as women
Mhm.
to accept it, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
no denial. So I've
Yeah.
found there's a lot of denial,
Yes.
or there's a lot of like, yeah, like I'm not there yet.
I'm
Because
too young.
I'm too young.
Mm.
Because it also brings up the thing of aging.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Which is a big thing.
It's
as
a
well.
big thing.
Mm.
So you have to admit that you're aging.
Mhm.
You have to admit that your fertility is ended.
Yes.
So maybe you as a woman are also looking at your identity like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah.
And you know, there's been a lot of pressure in society on women about aging.
Yeah.
So like, I always said there's a lot of, it's youth obsessed. All the social media has been all about the young, 20, 30.
Yeah.
And I love that now I'm seeing more women in their 40s and 50s coming up with the positive aging,
Yes.
you know, because we want women not to feel like there's something wrong with aging.
Yeah, and to understand there's something beautiful about every season
Every
of your life,
phase.
every phase of your life, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, even just looking at you, I'm like, she's gorgeous. She's in her 50s. I'm
Thank
in my
you.
40s and I'm
Yes.
loving it, you know. Or rather, I'm getting into my 40s. I know people who are in their 30s, who are in their 20s, and it's all very beautiful. And they're all seasons that we
Yes.
must go through,
Yes.
you know. So, you know, we're talking about, so we've said no denial.
Yes.
And
No shame.
no shame.
Stigma.
The stigma
And
needs
then
to,
the conversations with our partners,
Yes.
our workplaces. That's
Yes.
how we're going to change it when you ask that question.
and also, you know, because when you were sharing your story, you did mention that the healthcare work has never brought this up with you.
Yes.
For a young woman or for a woman going to see her doctor,
Yeah.
what kinds of questions should people ask?
Yeah.
Now that we're aware that our bodies are we're going to go through this.
Yeah.
What are those questions now intentionally that women should ask their healthcare workers when they go in for a checkup or whatever it is concerning their bodies, concerning menopause?
I always say that we are the best advocate for ourselves.
Yes.
Right?
Agree.
We have the most intelligence about how our body is.
Yeah.
So before even you get to your doctor, like
Yeah.
really tune into what's happening to you.
Mhm.
You know, understand, you know, what is a normal period for you, what is abnormal. Like
Yeah.
understand how when you're feeling good and when you're not feeling good.
Yes.
So that when you go to the doctor for tests,
Mhm.
you have the knowledge. Because, you know, I don't want to bash medical fraternity, as I call them, because I feel like, you know, being in health, I'm kind
Yes.
of there. I'm not a doctor, but I'm there
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
menopause.
Ally, yeah.
And we're together in
Yes.
this. But there's been conversation about like gaslighting women,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Who are going through these transitions, and then you're told, you're just aging.
Yeah.
It's just normal.
Yeah.
You know, like a woman
yeah.
goes, oh, my knees are hurting.
Yeah.
Why? That's another joint
Mm.
pain, muscle
Mhm.
pain.
Niuze unazeeka.
Unazeeka too.
Mhm.
But not really making you see that it's also related to your change in your hormones, and there are things you can do.
To
It doesn't
help.
mean that
Yeah.
you just sit there and say, okay, I'm getting old, so let me just get old the way I am. So when you go to the doctor,
Yeah.
you knowing your body,
Yes.
knowing what's your normal,
Mhm.
and then understanding what's changing
Mhm.
gives you more agency. Like when you talk to the doctor and say, and then you can say,
Yeah.
like a woman in her 40s,
Yeah.
I've been hearing these conversations
Yes.
about perimenopause and menopause. These are the things I'm feeling or seeing myself.
Mhm.
You know, I want to be sure.
Yeah.
Like take the lead.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think in the information age we're in,
Yeah.
there is enough for you to get some kind of information.
Yes.
Get
yes.
the knowledge, get the
Yes.
information,
Yes.
understand, and then you can go and ask the right questions.
Right.
But I do want to say this one thing, right?
Mhm, mhm.
During perimenopause,
Mm.
because of fluctuations in our hormones,
Yeah.
it's very hard. People ask me, what test should I go and do to
Yeah.
tell me that I'm going through perimenopause
Yeah, what
or
test
menopause?
should we do? Tell us, please.
You know, people just want the test and the medicine.
Yeah, yeah,
Dawa
yeah.
gani nichukue?
Yeah.
Which test? You know?
Eh.
But it's not that clean cut
Yeah.
because of the fluctuations.
Yeah.
Your estradiol, which
Yeah.
is what they measure for estrogen is actually changing. So you could go to the doctor and he does the test and he'll be like, your numbers are normal. Ukosawa.
Yeah.
This is what's happening a lot. Is that because of that, women will say, let me go get tested. And then the doctor says, but you look, everything looks fine.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not the case because you're feeling the changes in your body.
Right.
And it depends what time of the month, like where, you know. So really, menopause is about symptomology.
Yes.
Like it's, what are you experiencing? What are the changes you're feeling?
Yeah.
And then the confirmation is then like perimenopause is your changes in your period and then the end of your period.
Yeah.
So I think having that and having that conversation with a doctor will give you that. Like you just go and advocate for yourself. And that's kind of part of why I have Fabulous Living. I want women to advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
I want you to know that you can go to the doctor and ask these questions. How do you ask these questions? But then there are things you can do yourself in your lifestyle. Because lifestyle is a huge part.
Yes.
And then there's also hormone replacement therapy if you choose to have it. Right?
Yeah.
Which can be quite controversial.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know if you want to go back to the workplace briefly. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I feel like you've actually handled it well. When you told us about how workplaces are now open to having these conversations, so then they're able to know how to accommodate women who are going through menopause. I think that's really, really important. One of my biggest fears. This is now. I used to be afraid that I'd be the woman moving around with a fan. But I mean, I have a fan everywhere. I have one in my bag, in my car.
It's okay. I even brought a fan. You know,
you have a fan
because of these lights, right? Sometimes you do get a bit warm.
Yes.
But menopause is more than just hot flashes.
Exactly.
Right.
Which everybody is what we're understanding.
Yes. It's more than the hot flash.
Exactly.
But if you have your fan, you walk with it proudly.
I do.
Because I think people will be like, hey. You know, like corporate women. I've heard women say, I went into a meeting and then I just started breaking out.
Yes.
But if the conversation is there, then there'll be the accommodation. Maybe the room needs to be air conditioned.
Right.
You know, the woman can have a fan and nobody's looking at her like, why she's fanning herself. There's no shame in it.
Yeah.
Maybe they can have chill rooms where you go and work and the room temperature is a bit different.
Chill rooms.
Chill rooms.
I like that.
And this came up actually. I really love this. I had done a corporate wellness talk with a company recently and they were like, we want to do these chill rooms.
Yes.
And it's not just for women in menopause. It's anybody who wants just that cooler, because you don't want to also brand. This is the thing you have to be careful of in the workplace. We don't want to make this menopause policy a case of discrimination, because it could be.
Yeah.
If it's not handled well.
Yes.
It's delicate. And it's something where, we need menstruation-friendly policies and we need menopause-friendly policies.
Yes.
Because women are important in the workplace and biologically we're different from men.
Yes.
And these are accommodations that need to kind of be handled because women are having children and women are going through menopause. It's biological. We can't help it.
We cannot.
There's no choice.
Yeah.
So I think back to the workplace, when the workplace understands, and so I love this company and the HR manager woman was like, we were thinking about doing chill rooms, and I was like, I love it.
That is fantastic.
And other things like flex policies that you allow women to take, because imagine you're a woman, you're in your 40s or 50s. You didn't sleep. You woke up at 3 a.m. and you fell asleep maybe at 6 and then you have to get up in 30 minutes. So you wake up and you're like, I can't think.
You're so tired.
I can't function. Can I have the option to work from home today?
Okay.
Can I have that option?
And you don't have to explain why
you can just say I need to take a flex day, but where I can work from home.
Okay.
If that's a policy, and there's some companies that have that policy available. Not every company.
Yeah.
And then also you give and I know some people will say, will there be abuse? No, I think women are responsible enough to know if they want to do their job well.
Yes.
They just want to be given a bit of accommodation on the days they're struggling.
Yes.
Yeah. And so a menopause-friendly workplace, those are some of the things, there, and then
considerations
in medical insurance, covering hormone therapy for a woman who wants to get hormone therapy, because that can also help optimize kind of how she responds in the workplace and just her health generally, So All those things are important to look at.
So there are ways that we can be very intentional in supporting women through the season of menopause. As we finish, I'll tell you this. One time we were having a menopause conversation, and it wasn't just a table with women. There were men on the table, and they said, well, you know, even men go through, what do they call it?
Andropause.
That's the one.
Yes.
Can you just quickly tell us how different it is from menopause? Is it the same thing? Because this argument was very heated.
Okay. So, well, I think actually I was on this webinar not too long ago with another doctor.
Yes.
Well, with the doctor, I should say, not a doctor. I'm a patient expert, as they call me.
Okay.
You're a patient, then you become an expert, and then you become an advocate.
Yes.
So there was a doctor, and he was talking about andropause.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't know this. I learned something new in the conversation. So andropause is our main hormone is estrogen. And for men, their main hormone is testosterone, right? For the energy, right? For who you are. You know, estrogen makes us the women. As I told you, it's really great it's also an important regulator of our brain.
Okay.
And for men, it's testosterone. And remember I said they kind of get this pump every 15 minutes. So it's completely different from how we are 28-day cycle.
Yeah.
So it happens a bit later in men.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that actually when men turn in their 30s, there's a drop.
Okay. In the testosterone.
In the testosterone.
Okay.
So, you know, from like 18, you know, men, the testosterone is pumping, yeah? And then apparently in the 30s, I see the men are looking, the cameramen are all like,
they're like, are we in the drop zone?
Yes, gentlemen, listen. I learned this the other few months, July, whatever, a couple months ago. So apparently in the 30s, there's a decline, and then it kind of levels off, and then it declines again a bit later, like 50, 60. So it's not as dramatic as in women, right? But there is a loss.
Yes.
And then I think there's some men who 40s, 50s. There's the question of ED, erectile dysfunction. Sorry, I gotta bring it up. It's not necessarily related to andropause, but some people could have it because it could also be independent.
Yes.
So I'm not an expert in that area, but men do have andropause. They
go through changes,
but
it's not the same.
Theirs is not. And then some people say, hey, maybe when the man's there looking for the younger woman, that's definitely andropause. I've heard those conversations. Like they're like, the testosterone's needing a bit of boosting. But I feel like theirs is a bit, because men can still procreate, right? Even well into their 70s.
Older.
Yeah. Not all. I don't know. We think that all, but not all apparently. So again, an area that I don't really know. But because I'm talking about this, people ask me questions. So I'm like, I gotta read more.
Yes.
I want to know, right? So I can speak with a bit more certainty. But yes, men also go through a change, but not like we do. It's a bit later and not as dramatic. As far as I know. Based on my information. So
I think there's a sigh of relief in the room as well. But I want us to just finish on the note, you know, when you started, you said that you found gifts in menopause, that it's not all doom and gloom.
Correct.
You know, and
I want that to be the resounding message from this talk, is that it's not all doom and gloom, because I feel like menopause has the word pause, right? And I'm like, this is an invitation for women to pause and really look at what they're doing in life. What is working for them? What is not working for them, right? And we didn't talk about lifestyle at all, but I think this is a time when women can address that. Like, if you have a lot of stress in your life, it's not helping your transition. Can we step back and get more rest time? You know? We need more rest time. We need more self-care because women, we've been raised to take care of everybody.
But ourselves.
So then what happens when you hit perimenopause, menopause, you're like, whew,
you're burnt out.
I'm exhausted. I don't have, I call it the hormonal bandwidth to deal with everybody. You know, I don't know, there was I saw, I don't know if anybody saw this show on Netflix. It just came the other day. I can't remember the name. Where is Abbas? He's left. I can't remember the name, but Nicole Kidman is in it. And then she just starts yelling, I am tired of taking care of everybody in this house, right? Like, this is the stereotypical kind of like, you know, like the moment when women are like, okay, let's just stop.
Yeah.
Like, can we take care of us? Because if
pause.
we're taking care of everybody, our cup is not full, then we're really feeling the transition. So I tell women, menopause, I'm inviting you to pause. It's the pause time.
Yes.
Yes, it's a pause of our period, but I think it's also like for us to look at, are we happy with where we're in our life? You know, it's a time to look at, am I taking care of myself? Can I create some boundaries, even to ask children, like women will generally have teenage children. You can have a conversation with them and say, you know, when mom comes home, she's a bit tired, give her some time, or I need the weekend off, or I need help with this, you know. And I remember doing an interview with a young lady who's 25 about menopause. And she was like, oh my goodness, my mother, when I was talking about the symptoms, and I was like, she was like, now I'm going to have more compassion to help my mother and see. So I think we can also ask for the help.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And,
it's okay
and when we
to
explain,
ask for the help. Yeah.
And then, you know, take time, discover maybe some things that you've kind of put on the side.
Yeah.
Because what happens also, I realize some women go through even isolating socially. Like if you said, when you're suffering in silence, you know, maybe you just need to go and see your girlfriends and sit and have a nice chat. Connect. And just tell your family, your husband, I just need like some time on the weekend to do that. Because I've been, you know, it's like you have a lot going on as a woman.
Yeah. And I think that's part of what you said when you said we're our own best advocates.
Yes.
That's part of advocating for yourself.
Yes.
Is knowing that I need time out, I need some rest, I need this. And it's okay to say that, you know, I don't think anybody's going to give you a trophy for saving the world.
No.
And if you burn out and die, you won't even be there anyway to save the world.
I think we thought that when we were younger, right?
Imagined.
Like we were taught that, like, you just take care of everything. You'll then be the best woman. And then you hit your 40s, 50s, and you're like, whoa, I'm not getting a prize for this, right?
Yeah.
All I'm getting is stress, burnout, belly fat, exhaustion, lack of sleep, anger.
Yeah.
You know, we're doing all that, but let's do something for us. And then it's also an invitation for you to look at, what are you doing for your health and aging, right? Because I feel like this is the pathway to longevity. How you handle the transition, menopause, is what sets you up well for when you get older. Because then you start to realize, if you haven't been exercising or moving, I don't even say exercising, because I tell women the gym is optional, but movement is not.
Okay.
You need to move.
Yes.
Okay, whether it's walking in your neighborhood, or you can go and, you know, go to the gym if you want to. But movement is very important.
Yes.
It's a great stress reliever, and it's also great, you know, just, I think movement or exercise is really a mental health thing, more than, you know, because people always think exercise is to lose weight. No. Yeah. It's food. Yeah. Your nutrition is what is how you can really deal with weight. Agreed, yeah. But movement and exercise is a mental health thing, right? Absolutely. And so if you're in this phase and you're dealing with stress and there's all this stuff going on, these changes, movement is great. So the lifestyle, how you move, how you eat, how you manage your stress, supplementation, like you might, you know, need some supplements, and you can check if you're deficient in some things. Yes. And then you can also do hormone therapy, which is like another whole conversation. Kambua, you know, like
I'll have to read up on hormone therapy. But I will tell you that, you know, I even feel a little more confident listening to you, because I now realize, because I've become very aware of how I'm taking care of myself more than I was before when I was a little younger. I am being more intentional with my skincare. I'm moving. I walk. I have a coach who's always like, did you walk today? You know?
Nice.
So I walk.
Yeah.
I've learned to even tell my children, can mama get 20 minutes alone?
Oh, nice.
And they you know, they go off and do their thing, and, you know, they're banging on my door after 20 minutes, but I got my 20 minutes to breathe and get myself together.
Breathe. That's so important.
Yes. And you've told us to pause, to rest, to take care of ourselves. It will just make that transition a lot easier, to ask the right questions, to not be ashamed about something that first you have no control over, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a transition that's beautiful and inevitable. I want to close this. Have we missed anything that you feel, I must say this before we say kwaheri to our people? There could be something that you're like, we didn't say this one. Is there anything?
I'm thinking, no, I feel like it was a great kind of like, I wanted to give some statistics, but it's okay. I think they're saying by 2025, 1 billion women will be going through menopause. you know? So to realize that, you know, it's a number out there, and women, okay, this one is an important one. So there are about 8 billion people in the world, right?
Yes.
So 4 billion, about half of them are women. They're all going to go through menopause. I just want to put that out there. So it's not an optional thing, right? This is like, we're all going to go through it, right?
Yes.
And so it's something that we're going to have to talk about. We're going to have to admit, we're going to, you know, there's no hiding from it.
Yes.
And let's just end the shame and the stigma. Let's accept. And it's also, let's end this whole thing about aging and you know, ageism, and I did want to say we did an age positivity campaign with Vivo, and I say this because I saw you also did something with Vivo. You have your line, right? Beautiful.
Thank you.
So we also did Fabulous Living, and Vivo did an age positivity campaign at the end of the year.
Yes.
Last year, December into January.
Yes.
And we wanted to highlight this whole thing of just being fabulous at any age, because I feel, and we had menopause conversations, because I feel part of that, as we said, where women don't want to admit they're going through it, is because they're worried about their aging and they becoming irrelevant. So if we can be positive about aging, be positive about, you know, the transition, accept and acknowledge that this is a natural part of life that we're all going to go through, and just reframe it, right? There's nothing to be ashamed about.
Yes, yes.
Then, you know, we can see women in their 50s and 60s and say, hey, you know, you're fabulous.
Yes, you're fabulous at 60.
At any age.
You're
actually,
fabulous at 70.
We had fabulous at 65. We had a great woman, Rose Simani. She just looked amazing. And I was like, that's the energy. And she walks, she, you know, like every day, and she really takes care of herself. So the other thing is that, you have to take care of yourself. You have to invest in yourself. So I can say that as you have to invest in your health. Nobody else will do it for you. You know? And we're not asking for perfection, because there's no such thing. There's just small things you can change that can improve your quality of life, your transition through menopause, and get you into good patterns for longevity as a woman.
I'm not going to add anything to what Amina has said. She has said it all so well. And the conversation doesn't end here. Have those conversations with your girlfriends. Ask them, have you heard about menopause? Do you know what it means? Do you know if you're perimenopausal? Ask those questions, those provoking questions, because when we do, we're able to talk about these things, demystify it, take away the stigma, the more we keep talking about it. And as Amina said, you know, menopause is it's not that season that you should be dreading. We can actually look forward to that season of transition and how to go through it with ease. This has been Sautiyamama. My name is Kambua, and thank you so much for being here with us.